Michael, who are you? What's your role? Where do you work?
I am the Chief Academic Officer at ReGeneration Schools. We operate in Chicago. We have 6 schools in Chicago on the south side, and then we just opened some schools in Cincinnati. So we have 3 schools in Cincy.
Well, and you're a former founding principal.
I am. I was a founding principal at
Okay.
Achievement First. I founded a middle school and then went on to see those kiddos for 5 years and then became a superintendent with AF. And I'm back in my hometown in Chicago.
Michael, what's a question you always ask candidates and why that one?
So it's interesting. I think interviews, of course, we have limited time to try and get to know people. And so I'm not going to lie, I stole this question from a charter school growth fund convening. But I asked candidates, one, in one word, how would your coworkers describe you? One word, how would your closest friends describe you? And in one word, how would your family describe you? Say that because I think it's really important that I can walk away from an interview knowing holistically who is this person, what do they value, how do they show up, and it kind of chips away at some of the barriers that often get, you know, surfaced in interviews.
Yeah, that's great. And how do you help candidates get an honest, real understanding of what it's like to work at ReGen?
Yeah, I think we try to simulate as much as possible in our interview day what is a day in the life of a leader. So our interviews very much we get into classrooms, we jump in real time coach, we look at the student work and really try and make sure that if you're applying to work at ReGen, you know what it's like and you've experienced a culture of feedback, you've experienced a culture of closing gaps in the moment, and hopefully you're fired up about joining the team and being part of this work together.
How are you assessing whether they're fired up throughout
That's a,
the day? I
that's
know
a
that.
great question, right? So I think, interviewing, of course, it's formal data around track record of results and how they can talk about, student instruction and great teaching. The fired up piece to me is does a candidate get excited? Do they smile when they walk into a room? Do they have sort of those micro moments with kids, even if they've met them for the first time, that shows me, hey, I like this work? Because it's too hard to not be all in and to not find joy in the day to day.
And you yourself love teaching too, and that's a big part of working at
Yeah,
ReGen,
I
right?
mean it is the probably the secret sauce within our org that keeps me in it. It's finding people who see themselves as teachers, who see the work through leadership and teaching as a way to make people better and to also practice what you preach. I think for me, the closest managers I've ever been with have been those who will show me instead of tell me, and that's what we try and do together here at ReGen.
That's great. And what's your secret sauce when it comes to closing strong talent?
To closing strong talent.
Because, I mean, Bridget's a great example, right? Like, I didn't know that that's going to go through, and you made it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's twofold. I think one is just being really honest around the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think the leaders that have stayed within our org the longest know what they're getting into. They know what it's like to be a leader at ReGen on the day to day, and they're excited about it. But we're also honest around some of the tough decisions we have to make around the times of the year when things get hectic. And I think it's combining that with what are your short-term and long-term career goals. We are a smaller organization where we're growing and we're trying to find people that not only can fill a need in the short term, but can see themselves, 3 to 5 years continuing to, whether that's be the best possible principal they can be or move into a more senior level.
And what's the most creative or unconventional thing you've done to get a candidate to say yes?
I wish I had a more creative answer to the question.
Creative.
I think sometimes it's taking people outside of it's getting to know people outside of the school building, right?
Yeah.
So whether that's meeting at a coffee shop to just connect further or whether it's grabbing dinner or lunch, I think it's making sure that people see that they're joining an organization that wants to know people as humans, wants to get to know them beyond just the traditional interview format questions, because we spend so much time together. And so I think just going that extra mile to say, hey, tell me about your life, tell me about your values, tell me about what gets you excited to show up each day, I found to be a really helpful way to continue the conversation.
And you're an interesting person yourself. So you have lots of things too.
Hopefully that's a good thing.
I mean, right? Like you have lots of outside talent and interests, and I think that makes you a well-rounded person. And what I see is like you guys are looking for that.
Yeah, I think, the work is hard enough as someone who joined the In 2006, I've sort of seen the landscape shift from just work at all hours to now work in a way that's going to get outcomes, but also continue to value this long-term process of people in the org. And, at ReGen, we've been really proud. We've seen our highest retention to date over the past few years. And I think that's because um, we want to value the human side of the work in addition to doing what we need to do for kids and making that possible.
And what are some ways that you do that?
I mean, I think there's the informal, right? High fives in the hallway, connecting on a human level to the more formal ways in which we bring people together, whether that's our monthly events offsite, whether that's our kickoff event that we always do to start the year. I think it's recognizing both formally and informally that people matter in this work.
What do you think are like the underlying, like one or two underlying drivers of retention, other than like we care about people and we're in this long term, which are two great value propositions?
No, I think that's a great question. It's we care about you, we're in this long term, and we're going to ground decisions in student outcomes. Right? So we're willing to pour into people to help them move the needle, and we're willing to be unapologetic about the fact that the South Side of Chicago has very few high performing schools. And we know that's an adult problem, not a kid problem. And so I do think we try to ground our decisions in, if we were to send any kid to ReGen, would they come home every day and say, hey, I was challenged, supported.
Happy people matter. You've been a superintendent, so you know how to coach people around this, but what's been your best advice for a first time or like junior hiring manager?
I think it's really easy I think two pieces of advice. One is it's really easy to sort of get caught up in your head around trying to say the right things to sway someone. And I think just honesty throughout the process. I think everyone knows that no organization has it all together. And so be willing to share honestly where are some of the areas where we're looking to improve, because we're so high on feedback ourselves is one piece. And I think the other is really digging into past experience. I do think people show up differently for interview days, and the best indicator of future performance is what have you done to drive outcomes, to bring a team together and really.
Can you change the point of choice? You guys are one of the only places I've seen since like Steph Kino used to do.
So funny you say that, because I literally just led a professional development PD with our middle school principals on the point of choice conversation.
Yeah.
And so what we've seen at ReGen is our best people who we hire. Not only do we see them connected to our mission and to believing that all kids can learn, but it's the second piece around the model fit. It's exciting that within the charter school landscape, there's so many different school options for people to work at. And we want people to choose ReGen because of what we value, and also to be transparent around where they may struggle. And so we really try to frame conversations around what makes us excited about you joining our organization and where are the areas where you might struggle. Not because it's a bad thing, but because we're human. And in this work, there's areas where we're going to be pushed. They know then going in, hey, here's the pathway for me. And here's what I'm signing up for.
And are you showing them like a piece of paper that says, like Steph Kino used to be like, okay, between 8 and 5, like these are all the things that might happen to you here. Like, what are you showing them?
Yeah, I think the principal schedule, especially for leaders, is something that does set us apart, I think, at ReGen, where we are an organization where we expect leaders to be in classrooms for 80% of their time, to be model teaching, to be analyzing the work. And I think being able to name that really explicitly, talk about the exciting parts of that model, but then also what can feel draining at times. And really, I think, painting the picture for the year ahead and talking about the good, the bad, the ugly, so that people can get fired up about the good and also know when there's some components that are going to be different for them, how they're going to navigate that and how they're going to be supported.
So telling them kind of like, this is something that can happen to you during the day that you might not like, or,
Yeah, right. So, you may have a teacher who calls out and there's not someone available, right? And so you may have to, as the principal in this case, model great ELA instruction so that you can serve a dual purpose, right? You can get outcomes for kids and then also be able to be the model at PD. And so I think that's one example where, we wouldn't default to kids on laptops. We would say, hey, that's why we have leaders. They get to do this work and make it fun for them.
Smart. Okay, my last question is, you guys do such a good job of like mission and model fit.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of folks could benefit from it. Can you talk about how you arrived at such clarity and how you these statements in the application to assess for, is it mission and model fit?
Right. So mission is truly do candidates believe that all students, regardless of income, regardless of race, regardless of any other factors, can excel? And we find most people who apply to not just ReGen but other charters have that belief. But the other piece is the model fit. So do they believe that the way in which we're going to go about achieving that mission is aligned with their values and aligned with the type of school they want to be a part of? And so we really try and drill down on the front end around questions like real-time coaching, questions like student work protocols, questions around feedback. How do you like to receive feedback? How do you give feedback? And really kind of start to get a picture of the candidate, and then they hopefully get to know us more too around what we value. We always give each other a high five when we're hiring leaders within ReGen when we find someone that's both a model fit and a mission fit at the same time.
Can you just say like a little bit more about why assessing for model fit upfront matters so much, and like how that might mitigate concerns or like that come up later for folks?
Yeah, I think, and again, not to every organization has its own set of values, beliefs, their own secret sauce, and for us, I think the prime example that comes to mind is it is I think back to last year where we had a superintendent coaching a principal who was coaching a teacher all live in the classroom. And then I was coaching the superintendent. And in that moment, it was very much, this is our model. This is how we believe great leaders can grow and develop. And we want people that are hungry for that. We want people that are excited to get into the work and who see feedback as a way to grow and get better. We know some people that might be jarring for them, and we'd rather know that earlier rather than later so that we get the right folks to join our team.
Okay. Last minute, any other advice about hiring that you want to share?
I think the one piece of advice that actually feels most recent for me is come back to the data. So we actually just did a step back with our principals where we looked at who were the candidates that we hired who didn't make it through the year, or who were the candidates that were exceptional. Because the more you can drill down to those model fit questions, it mitigates bias and it allows you to find the great people. And I think oftentimes in hiring, we think of once they sign, we've hit that mark and we're good to go. And it's more so now about what does that tell us about who signs? What does that tell us about who stays? And what does it tell us about who excels? And how do we use that to be more reflective of ourselves?
Okay, thank you so much, Michael.
Of course. Thank you, Taylor.